Realized something was wrong one ordinary morning. One of those where routine lulls you and makes you believe everything is still the same. We were in the kitchen. I was pouring coffee, and Andrea was checking her phone with that permanent look of annoyance she had been using with me for months. She reached out her hand to take the cup, and then I saw it. Her ring finger bare. The pale hollow where her wedding ring had always been jumped out at me like an alarm siren. And the ring. I asked, trying to sound casual, but feeling my voice betray me. She didn't even look up from the phone, just took a sip of coffee, made a face, and answered with a coldness that froze my blood. I pawned it. How do you mean you pawned it? I put the coffee pot down on the counter with more force than necessary. That ring calm, sentimental, cut me, finally looking at me, with those dark eyes full of a mixture of boredom and contempt. I pawned it to help Yvonne. He needs it more than I do. You no longer mean anything. The words hung in the air, heavy and real. I felt a buzzing in my ears, as if I'd received a physical blow. Yvonne, her ex, the same name that was supposedly part of the past when we got married, the same one she claimed she had never seen again. Ah, Yvonne, I repeated clumsily. Are you serious? Andrea put the phone down on the table and crossed her arms, adopting that defensive and arrogant posture she perfected over time. Of course I'm serious. Marcos. He's going through a tough time. Yes, you're stable, you have a steady job, health insurance, your usual little salary. He's not in a rut. What's so hard for you to understand? It's my ring, too, I murmured. It's our marriage. Andrea let out a short, empty laugh. Our marriage is the least you should worry about right now. What's on your finger is metal, nothing more. Don't exaggerate. I looked at my own hand. The golden band was still in place, pressing against my skin as if it suddenly burned. I had saved for months to buy those rings. I had worked overtime. I had given up the trip with my friends to be able to give her something worthy the day she said yes, and she had traded it for a pawn ticket to help her ex. I felt a nauseating mixture of rage and shame. And why didn't you tell me before doing it? I managed to ask why you were going to do exactly this. She said, nodding her chin at me, your dramatic little act. I'm not a child. I can make decisions without asking your permission. Besides, it's not like you wear it. I looked at her, without recognizing her. Andrea had been at first a sweet, fun woman, the typical one who filled any room with her laughter. Now she was something else, cold, calculating, with a sharp tongue she used as a weapon whenever something didn't fit what she wanted. It's not about permission, I answered with my voice getting lower. It's about respect. There you go, starting with your cheap manual speeches. She rolled her eyes. Respect values marriage. You sound like an old church man. Grow up, Marcos. Real life isn't a fairy tale. She stood up, left the almost full cup in the sink, and picked up the phone again. Her fingers flew over the screen. Smiling faintly, a smile that wasn't for me. You're writing to him. It came out without thinking. And if I am? She raised a challenging eyebrow. What are you going to do? Take the ring I no longer have? I stayed silent. Any word I said would sound pathetic in the face of her indifference. She took advantage of my silence, as always. I'm in a hurry, she added. Today I'll be out late. Don't wait up like every day. Yes, I'm not your routine. Marcos passed by me brushing my shoulder, without looking at me, and the smell of expensive perfume I didn't know on her stuck in my memory. The front door closed a second later, and the whole house seemed to exhale with her. I leaned on the counter and felt my legs shaking. You no longer mean anything. The words bounced in my head like a sentence. I tried to convince myself that she was just angry, that it had been a phrase thrown into the air, but deep down I knew it wasn't. She had said it calmly, like someone stating a fact. I looked at the empty spot where she always left her keys, the little ceramic dish I bought her on a trip. There was nothing left. No keys, no ring, no trace of the woman I had made future plans with. Just me, with my cold coffee and the growing certainty that the ring thing was just the tip of something much darker. That same morning, for the first time in 8 years of relationship, I seriously thought about something I had flatly rejected until then. Maybe Andrea no longer just despised me. Maybe she was also cheating on me. That day at the office, I didn't work. I pretended. opened emails, looked at reports, nodded in meetings. But my mind was still trapped in the image of her bare finger and the phrase she had let out so easily. You no longer mean anything. During lunch, my colleagues talked about football and a trip they were planning, and I barely touched the menu dish. I took out my phone, turned it on, and opened the banking app almost out of inertia. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just something to confirm it was all a misunderstanding. But there they were, the transactions. 3 days earlier, a charge at a pawn shop in the center. Exact amount, like it was no coincidence. I swallowed hard. It didn't have to be the ring, I told myself. It could be something else. A chain, an old watch, anything, only it wasn't. My throat closed. I closed the app, opened it again. The charge was still there like a stain. I got up from the table, without finishing eating. "Everything okay, Marcos?" asked Sergio, my colleague. Yes, I just have to make a call." I lied. I didn't make any call. Instead, when I left work, I took the subway to the center. I walked until I found a pawn shop. A sad corner would display cases full of watches, chains, consoles, and cameras. The sign flickered halfway. I entered with my heart racing. "Good afternoon," I said, approaching the counter. The man behind the glass, fat and bald, looked me up and down. "Tell me, a few days ago someone pawned a woman's gold ring here with an inscription inside. I would like to know if you still have it." The man snorted. "Name, ID?" he asked. Already with an annoyed face, I gave him my details, although I knew the pawn wouldn't be in my name. He checked the screen, typed slowly, frowned. "Here appears a ring with inscription. Yes, in the name of Andrea Jimenez. Expiration of the term. In 30 days, I felt a blow to the stomach. The inscription I had engraved inside, always you and me, as if fate was laughing at me. "Can I see it?" I asked with a broken voice. The man snorted again, but he did. He took out a tray from the display case, rummaged through small plastic bags, and finally left the ring on the glass. There was our symbol turned into just another commodity. I had to make an effort not to scream. "Do you want to redeem it?" asked the guy. "It cost the same as what was given plus the commission." I looked at the price on the screen. It wasn't a fortune, but it wasn't little either. And still, the only thing I thought was, she didn't even tell me. She preferred to ask her ex for help rather than talk to me. "No," I whispered. "I just want to confirm something." I left there with the feeling of walking underwater. The air weighed on me. The city sounded distant. She hadn't just pawned it for him, but it hadn't even occurred to her to mention it to me. It wasn't an impulsive act. It was a cold decision. The ring was worth helping Yvonne. I was worth less. When I got home, it was already night. The living room light was on. Andrea was on the couch with her legs crossed and the phone in her hand. She was wearing a short dress I had never seen before and intense red lipstick. She smelled of the same expensive perfume from morning. "You're late," she commented without looking up too much. "You too," I replied, closing the door. "You said you come straight from work, that you'd be late." She shrugged. "Plans change." I stood in front of her, looking at her. She kept sliding her finger on the screen, smiling from time to time. That gesture turned my stomach. I was at the pawn shop. I let out all at once. Her fingers stopped. She slowly raised her gaze, like an annoyed cat whose nap has been interrupted, and I saw the ring. I continued. "I saw it in a little bag, with your name, with the inscription, always you and me. That doesn't seem important to you either." Andrea pressed her lips for a second and then smiled. A fake smile I already knew too well. "Really, Marcos, you're ridiculous. You went all the way there. Just for that you're sick. I'm tired of you lying to me," I said, feeling my voice finally break. "You told me you had taken it off because it bothered you, then that you pawned it to help Yvonne. Since when you talked to him? Since when do you need to pawn our ring to help him?" She clicked her tongue. "Since before you started acting like a paranoid watchdog. Maybe he at least listens to me. He doesn't spend his life complaining. Are you seeing him?" I asked straight out. Andrea smiled sideways, a cruel smile. "And if I am," she repeated the same phrase from morning. "What? Are you going to go mark territory, like a dog? He was part of my life before you. I always told you that. You came after. You can talk to whoever you want, I said, even though it hurt. But you can't use our marriage as currency to support your ex. That's crossing a line. She stood up from the couch with a sudden movement. The only line that was crossed here was when you started checking on me, following my steps, playing the victim in your own house. She spat. If you don't like it, the door is there. No one is keeping you. I looked at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. This house I pay for. I whispered. So what? She answered, getting so close that I could see the cold gleam in her eyes. I pay for with you, your boredom and your mediocrity. Don't get confused, Marcos. A roof doesn't buy you the right to decide who I talk to, who I help, or who I miss. That last word pierced me. You miss him? I asked almost in a threat of voice. She held my gaze without blinking. More than I love you right now. And there I knew it was no longer just about a pawn ring. Something much deeper and dirtier was moving underneath, and I was just starting to see it. That night, I hardly slept. I lay in the dark staring at the ceiling, listening to her calm breathing next to me, as if she hadn't destroyed anything. From time to time, she would turn over, murmur something in her sleep, and I only thought about one thing. Yvonne. The name spun in my head like a fly you can't swat. I remember when at first Andrea talked about him as that mistake from the past, an immature, irresponsible guy who had cheated on her and never wanted anything serious. That's what she said. Now, suddenly he was someone worthy of sacrificing our ring. The next morning, she got up before me. I heard her in the bathroom humming. She even put music on her phone while doing her makeup. Good mood only returned to her when I was the one left underneath. She came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, with wet hair and the phone in her hand, smiling while typing. So early and already writing, I asked from the bed, work. She answered without looking at me, walking toward the closet. Something you wouldn't understand, because you love living in complaint. I watched her while she chose clothes, tight pants, low-cut blouse she never wore to the office, high heels. She turned to the mirror, looked at herself from top to bottom, and smiled satisfied. Since when you dress like that for work? I couldn't help saying, since I realized I still can, even though I live with someone who makes me feel old. She let out, nailing each word. I'm not going to ask your opinion on how I look. You already have enough with your same old shirt. I bit my tongue. I knew if I insisted we would end up shouting again, and I would end up being the exaggerated one, the controlling one, the drama king, as she liked to call me when we argued. When she left, I let a few minutes pass. My stomach was in knots, but my head had already crossed the limit. I went straight to the living room, where she always left her bag thrown. I didn't feel proud, but I needed to know something, anything. I rummaged through her things until I found it. A second phone, an old device, but in good condition with a simple case. I had never seen it. I turned it on with sweaty hands. It had no pattern, just an easy code. Her birthday. I entered the message inbox. The first pinned chat had a name that made me clench my teeth. Yvonne Norilon. The heart next to the name was like a slap. I opened the conversation. I didn't have to scroll much to find what I feared. Last night, I dreamed about you again. She had written. He replied, you don't have to dream me. You know where to find me. Just say yes, and I'll pick you up at the usual corner. I kept reading photos, messages with insinuations, confessions she had never told me. Since I met him, I knew I had made a mistake. She wrote in one. He doesn't deserve you. Yvonne replied, you were always mine. The dates were recent. Messages sent while I was at work, while I cooked, while I thought my marriage was just going through a bad patch. I felt my legs go weak, and I dropped onto the couch. It wasn't just a ring. It wasn't just the hurtful phrases. She was openly cheating on me for weeks, maybe months, and had had the nerve to look me in the eyes and tell me that I no longer meant anything. I kept scrolling until I found a message from the night before. Today was intense. I missed this, she wrote. Yvonne replied, next time stay over. He doesn't have to find out. Next time, that meant there had already been a first, a second. I imagined Andrea in his arms wearing the same perfume that now filled our house, the same short dress, the same laughs that used to be mine. At that moment, I didn't just feel rage. I felt humiliation. The kind that burns and leaves you breathless. Everything fit: the outings with friends, the overtime at work, the constant disdain toward everything I did. I locked the phone screen and put it back in the bag exactly where it was. She couldn't suspect yet that I already knew everything. Not until I decided what to do. I sat for a long time with my hands clasped, staring into space. For the first time in years, the idea of leaving the house was not just an impulsive reaction to a fight. It sounded like a possible way out. But before leaving, I felt that something inside me demanded one last thing: that Andrea look me in the face when the mask fell, that she know that she was no longer fooling an idiot, and that for the first time the decision of who stayed and who left was not going to be hers. That day I arrived earlier than usual. I left work early, made up some excuse, and first went to the pawn shop. The man looked at me with the same annoyed face. But this time I took out the card without hesitation. "I'm here to redeem my wife's ring," I said. Minutes later, I had the ring in my hand. It shone under the artificial light. Just like the day I put on her finger, "Always you and me." I felt a stab in the chest, but it was no longer nostalgia. It was the closure of something. At home, the silence greeted me as always. I put the ring in the center of the dining table, on top of the pawn ticket, well spread out. Then I put my wedding band aside. It was important that she saw everything together. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to cry. I had given her that too many times. It was almost 10 when I heard the key in the lock. Andrea entered laughing, smelling again of that expensive perfume, with her makeup a bit smudged and the dress wrinkled. "What are you doing here in the dark?" she asked, turning on the light. "You look like a ghost, Marcos." She froze when she saw the table, the ring, the paper, my band. Her eyes moved quickly from one object to another, calculating, "What is this?" She forced a laugh. Another dramatic little act. I stood up slowly. "It's your ring," I said. "The one you pawned to help your ex. I redeemed it, since for you it was worth him." She crossed her arms. On the defensive, "I didn't have to tell you anything. It was mine." I didn't deny. "It was ours. Just like this marriage you used as an excuse why you went to usual corner with Yvonne." I saw it. Fear flashed in her eyes for just a second, but it was enough. "You don't know what you're talking about," she tried. I took the second phone out of her bag, put it next to the rings. "You dreamed about him. You missed this. Next time you're going to stay over." I read everything, Andrea. Everything. Now she really lost a smile. "You had no right to go through my things," she spat. "You're invasive. A sick controller. That's why I went with someone who does understand me." "No," I repeated, calmer than ever. "You left because you wanted to, because you were always selfish, cruel, and cowardly. I just took too long to see it. I took my ring and took it off in front of her. I left it on the table next to hers. The house is mine. The contract is in my name. The one leaving is you," I said without hesitating. "This time you're not going to say the door is there. So I leave. Pack your bags." She opened her mouth to insult me, but I no longer cared. I walked toward the hallway door and pointed at it, giving her back her own words. "If you don't like it, the door is there. And don't worry, Andrea, you no longer mean anything." After that night, the rest was almost automatic. She left the house in a few days, and I started the divorce. No children, no joint assets beyond the house. Everything was resolved quickly. The home stayed in my name, and each went their own way. We signed the papers without looking at each other too much. There were no scenes, just a finally from her part and a yes from mine. I sold her ring, and with that money I took a small trip for myself. Only looking at the sea did I understand that the real closure was not the divorce, but the moment I stopped blaming myself and accepted that I had simply freed myself from someone who never knew how to love me.